All right, today I'm going to show you how I've helped hundreds of my clients to avoid making 5 of the biggest mistakes when they stop drinking alcohol, making the process of getting away from alcohol so much easier and free of pain. Now, before we get into that, let me give you a quick caveat. This only applies to people who want to grow and they want to focus on living their best lives. If you're going to stop drinking but look for another dopamine brain drain to plug back into, this is not for you. All right, onwards and upwards, eh? So a few years ago, I was living in Spain and I started going down to the gym, and I was going down there fairly early in the morning. I used to talk to, there was a group of lads, and there was one particular fella who was one of the regulars, turned up at 7 just to avoid the crowds. And you know, there were serious people who wanted to just train then, you know, and not look at themselves in the mirror. And we were taking turns on the lat pull down machine. He was a South African guy. I think he was from Cape Town. He was fairly grizzled looking bloke. He was only about 5.5 foot, only a small fella. And he reminded me of something from a Daktari movie or something like that. You know, he was fairly always tanned and all that kind of stuff. And he was in his early 70s. And like I said, he was only a small fella, but he could pull the same weight that I was doing on this lat pull down, right? I'm 6'2". So it was, and I was 20 years younger than him. So it was making me feel fairly embarrassed. Anyway, he was talking about his granddaughter and how the granddaughter's mother was taking the daughter all the time to McDonald's, and I presume she was putting on a bit of weight with it. And he was saying he wishes that she wouldn't do that. So I was saying that, you know, there's temptation everywhere, that I'm into cakes and sweets, and, you know, it's hard sometimes. And he said, look, self-control is 3 feet long. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Self-control is 3 feet long. And he pointed to his fingertips, and he pointed to his shoulder, and then he pointed to his mouth, and he says, if you don't want anything to go in here, pointing to his mouth, he says, you don't put it here, pointing to his hand. All the damage that I ever caused, all the damage that was ever caused to my body was caused by me. Right? To my mind, to my relationships, to my hopes, to my dreams, to my expectations. Every bit of damage that alcohol did to my body, that was all down to me. And the only way that alcohol got into my body was through my mouth. Right? And the only way it ever got into my mouth was because I picked up the can or the bottle or the glass and I put it there, every drop. Each drop of alcohol that ever got into my body was a deliberate choice by me. Right? I didn't have to put it there. Every sip I could have said no, every time. And that's a big statement of responsibility right there. You know, I am responsible for every drop of alcohol that ever goes into my body. I am responsible for every bit of damage, therefore, that alcohol ever caused in my body, to my mind, to my life, to my relationships, to my hopes, to my dreams, to my expectations. It was all down to me and my choices. So don't blame the alcohol. Alcohol is just a liquid in a bottle. It has no brain, it has no consciousness, it has no willpower. If you do not lift that bottle up, it will sit in that bottle forever, right? It will never do you any harm unless you make the deliberate and conscious choice to lift it up and put it where it can do harm. So if you want to move upwards in your life, you have to, if you want to get to that life where you never want to escape from, you've got to take responsibility for yourself. As soon as you start to blame something outside of yourself, right, you lose control of that situation. Your power to change has gone, right? That's the number one. Don't blame the alcohol. I drank for over 30 years, and it took me that long to understand, to cop on to the fact that me putting the alcohol into my body was the problem. Right? It wasn't the booze, not my friends, not my past, not my genes, not some disease. It was me reaching down, picking up the alcohol and dumping it into my body. And I did that over and over and over again, right? And that's hand to mouth, as we were saying in the last one. Every drop, I put it there, 30 years plus. So I just want to give you some idea of what is the goal in the beginning. right? You know, the goal is not to put the alcohol into your mouth, to stop drinking alcohol and to see where that leads you, right? And it doesn't matter why you put the alcohol into your mouth or why you don't put the alcohol into your mouth. Your body doesn't really care for your reasons. You know, your mental state doesn't care for your reasons. You know, if you put the alcohol into your body, there's going to be damage, right? If you keep the alcohol out of your body, the damage is going to stop. And that's just a fact, right? I regret big time that I didn't stop putting the alcohol into my body many, many years ago. But it doesn't help. It doesn't help me. It doesn't help the situation. It doesn't help me moving forwards. You know, regret for wasting all that time is just wasting more of my time now, right? And that's absolutely pointless. Now, I can't stop drinking 30 years ago, right? I can't stop drinking 10 years ago. I can't stop drinking yesterday. So there's no point in thinking about it. The same goes for quitting next week or next month or next year. You know yourself very well, right? What's the likelihood if you start to say to yourself, well, I'm not going to stop drinking now, I'm going to stop drinking next week or next month, or I'm going to stop drinking in January, or one of those times. So the only time you can make the decision to not put anything into your body is now. So you have to ask yourself, what is stopping you from doing that right now? Now, the actual decision to stop drinking, that's just taken, it took me a couple of minutes, right? I was watching my son, you know, there was an interaction with my son. I'll talk to you about that in the next point. And, you know, I had to stop. So the point is, with number 2, is don't overcomplicate stopping drinking alcohol. It's not complicated. It's a binary decision with 2 choices. The first choice is you continue to make the choice to drink alcohol, whatever form that takes. The second choice is that you stop putting the alcohol into your mouth. End of story. You know, there is no more to the decision to that. You choose one of those routes. And the only person you're destined to become is the person you decide to be. That's the great Ralph Waldo Emerson. To drink or not? To drink or not to drink? That's the question. All right. I was getting some pretty awful hangovers towards the end of my drinking life, you know, like the last 10 years or so. I'd really get little to no sleep. I'd wake up feeling awful, and I'd spend the day ahead just in this pity party, you know, feeling sorry for myself, blaming the alcohol, blaming other people, blaming circumstances in my life. I wouldn't be doing this if this had happened, and I wouldn't be doing it if that had happened, you know, and just basically feeling sorry for myself, right? I'd eat a load of junk food to try and make myself feel better. And one of the things that I would say to myself over and over again was, never again. This is the last time I'm doing this, right? I can't keep doing this to myself. And I'd make that commitment in that moment to stop drinking alcohol. And that, you know, when I look back on it from now, I just think about what's kind of half-assed decisions they were, right? In the moment, feeling the pain, and then committing to the change when you're feeling the pain. And as soon as the pain is gone, as soon as the hangover starts to wear off, as soon as I make an excuse to have a hair of the dog and get drunk again, then, you know, that commitment goes out the window, and it never comes back from that perspective until the next time you have a bad hangover. It's like a dentist once told me that it's very easy to get people to come into his practice when they're in pain and they need a problem sorted out, but trying to get people to come in for regular checkups, which will avoid the pain in the long term, that's a different story. So when I go to 2012, the end of 2012, when I finally made the decision, it was like I stepped into a whole different part of my life. The alcohol was in the past. I didn't realize how much I had to leave the alcohol in the past at that moment, right? I stepped through a door, and for those first few months, it just seemed like I was on this really wonky bridge. And it was a bridge that wasn't constructed, so I had to build it myself. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. There were so many mistakes that I made over that time, but eventually, you know, after a lot of soul searching, after a lot of work, after a lot of experimentation, I finally laid that last bridge and I stepped over onto the other side. And honestly, it was a a side of just contentment. That's the best way I can describe this. I mean, I don't want to say that, you know, like suddenly my life was happiness and joy and all those kind of things, but I had much more happiness and joy in that part of my life than I ever had as a drinker. And that contentment has just kept growing and growing and growing. So what I want you to think about is, don't mix the decision to stop drinking alcohol with what comes next, right? You know, if you think about, let's go into another topic of weight loss. If your decision to diet, making the decision to diet, is not the same as you actually starting to change your food, to reduce the amount of calories that you're having, to go to the gym, to start running, to gradually losing your weight, seeing your weight dropping on the scale, right? They're two different things, you know. And it's the same thing here, you know, stopping drinking alcohol. That decision, once you leave the alcohol behind, it's a different viewpoint that you have to have. Now, most people, they get stuck in the old viewpoint, which I'll talk to you in a minute about. But what I want you to do is think forwards, think where you want to go. You know, I made the decision to stop drinking alcohol so many times in my life, but I never followed through with it. I either tried to skirt around it with moderation, or I made the decision to stop, like I said, under circumstances where I was, you know, in pain because of the alcohol. And until you follow through, right, until you're committed, you are never going to succeed at this. So don't mix those two things up. The decision to stop drinking alcohol is completely different to the process. One is a choice, a decision, and the other is a process that you have to follow through. You've made the decision to stop drinking, you're ready to move on. Now what? Right? Move on to what, or where, or who? You know, who do you want to be? What kind of life do you want to live? Let me give you an example of this. I could bring you to this spot right now, and I could say to you, okay, leave and go in any direction that you want, right? Which direction are you going to take? You know, think about it. You've got an infinite number of choices. You could walk in that direction down there, right, in a straight line, or you can go in that direction up there in a straight line, right? Or you can go down this way and you can make a turn here and you can make a turn there. In reality, before you make the decision about which direction you're going to take, what do you have to do first? You first have to decide where it is that you want to go. Now, here's the problem. All paths are not equal. All directions are not equal. The outcome that you want determines the direction that you take, right? Think about that. The outcome that you want determines the decision or the direction that you take. Let me give you another example. We'll go back to that weight loss example. I think most diets fail because people have really got the wrong goal in mind. You know, when I'm talking about fail, I'm talking about when somebody, you know, even when they lose the weight that they're set out to, that they intended to lose in the first place, they'll put that weight back on again. If not more, they'll go back to where they started from, if not, you know, in a worse position. And one of the biggest reasons is they don't see beyond the weight loss. You know, I know, you know, losing 10 pounds or 20 pounds or any of that stuff is not easy, but it's a hell of a lot easier than continuing to live a healthy lifestyle. So maybe that when you're 80 years of age, you can still play with your grandkids, right? You know, most people will focus only on the 10 pounds of weight. They'll focus on fitting into a pair of pants that they wanted to fit into, or, you know, they'll look good in the mirror, or what they think that they look good as. And inevitably, after they've lost the weight, they'll go back to their old lifestyle and the inevitable eating and the inevitable weight gain again. So the direction that you take, the goal that you want to get to, you know, this is really going to determine the path that you take and the process that you take on board, the process that you want to see implemented in your own life, right? You know, you see this all the time, as I said before, with people who stop drinking alcohol, but their focus remains on stopping drinking alcohol. You know, their focus is on the past instead of the future. There's no real destination to that. You know, when people start saying, I'm an alcoholic and I'm always going to be an alcoholic, I'm an alcoholic for life, I'm sober 5 weeks, I'm sober a year, I'm sober 5 years, I'm sober 20 years. You know, I felt the urge today, so I went to a meeting, all that kind of stuff. It's like having a faulty GPS system, and each turn that you take takes you right back to where you started. You know, that's why, as I said, people are 20 years without a drop of alcohol in their body, and they're still calling themselves alcoholic, right? They're still in that alcoholic identity, and it's because they don't have a process of getting away from that. So, you know, I say this to my coaching clients all the time, right? Now that you've stopped drinking alcohol, this is one of the biggest opportunities that you've got in your whole life. There are so many areas of your life that are open now for you to reinvent yourself, right? Reinvent who you are, right? Rebuilding what you do, rethinking how you live your life, re-examining your beliefs, your values, your expectations. All of that is up for grabs right now. You know, you've got this, it's like a window of opportunity, and it's a small window of opportunity that you can take. So I try to focus them on that goal from day one, the consistent positive outcomes that they want to achieve, right? You know, then what I do is I can focus my attentions not on where they are, but where they want to be. You know, and that's what you have to do. You have to focus your attention not on where you are right now, but where you want to be in the future. Where do you want to be on day 60? Where do you want to be after 6 months? Where do you want to be after a year or 5 years down this road? So instead of focusing our attention on cravings and discomfort and just coping with life without alcohol, we can now focus our energy on growth, on purpose, on abundance, on happiness, on life satisfaction, on that contentment that I was talking about, on building that life of contentment that I was talking about. You have to begin with the end in mind. You have to begin with the end in mind. You know, if you don't know where you're going, you're going to end up someplace else. Success is about progressive realization of a worthy goal or ideal. The best way to predict the future is to create it. The people who said these things, right, they knew that what you focus on is what you get. I used to get up in the morning, and 8 times out of 10, I'd have a hangover of some sort, ranging from, you know, really just mild brain fog to out and out physical torture, right? Every bit of it self-inflicted, and I knew it. You know, like I said, I made the decision to quit so many times during those dark hangovers. You know, it's like when you're a kid and you know you're going to get punished for something, and you say stuff like, "Oh, I'll never do it again," or "I'll be a good boy," but you know that you've done wrong, right? And you know that what you've done wrong, the punishment that's coming for you, is self-inflicted. But as a kid, you know, you either learn by lessons or not. I used to learn very quickly when I got a slap rather than being kept in, and I prefer that because it was over and done with. You know, my point is that I got used to living that way, getting up in the morning, not feeling like I'd had the best sleep. I'm tired, I'm lethargic, I've got no energy, I've got no enthusiasm, for anything in my life. But I've still got to get up, I've still got to get stuff done, I've still got to earn money, right? You still got to go to work, you still got to deal with other people, you've still got to get through the day. And that was the thing, getting through the day, right? What a way to live. And by the end of the day, you know, I'm even more tired. I'm even more stuck in just this trance of doing nothing. I've achieved nothing. And if I'm lucky, I haven't taken a step backwards during the day, right? That means that I'm sleepwalking my way through life. And all I want to do every night is just to crash on that sofa, open up another drink, you know, escape into alcohol, escape into Netflix, and then it's time to comatose. And what's to look forward to then? Because I have to get up in the morning and do the same thing all over again. You know, sometimes with a hangover, sometimes not, sometimes with a bad hangover, sometimes not. And I have to do that again the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. It's like some horrible Groundhog Day, right? And that's no life. But then the change happens, right? You know, one change that changes everything. No more hangovers, no more brain fog, no more self-pity, no more sadness. And again, consistent outcomes depend on the road that you take, you know. I get up in the morning now, I'm up at 4 o'clock and I'm refreshed. I'm feeling contented. I'm looking forward to the day. I love what I do every day. You know, if you enjoy what you're doing, you never have to work a day in your life. And getting rid of alcohol from my life was something, you know, getting rid of alcohol from anyone's life is not something that you should be ashamed of. It's not something that you should fear or regret or be nervous about or any of that negative stuff, right? It's something that should fill you with hope, with potential, with optimism. You know, it should fill you full of enthusiasm for the possibilities that are now opening up in your life. To wake up in the morning full of enthusiasm for the day ahead. To go to bed that night knowing that you've achieved something of value. You know, looking forward to doing it all over again the next day. You know, all of this happened for me because I didn't want to have a life where I wanted to escape anymore. I wanted to work to make that happen, right? And I did work to make that happen. You know, it took me a long time to figure some of this stuff out, right? If I could go back to day one again, and I knew what I knew now, I'd do in a year what I did. It took me 5 years to do. So when you finally make the decision to stop drinking alcohol, don't think about it as switching the alcohol. Don't think about switching the alcohol for any other drug or any other kind of addiction, you know, putting yourself into any other kind of mind screw. You know, the trick is, instead of looking for an alternative escape, you know, let's start building alternative mindsets, alternative ways of thinking about things, alternative ways of doing things, you know, building the life that you're happy to get up in the morning to, and the life where you can go to bed the night before and you're excited about what the next day is going to bring, right? I think when you do this properly, it does take time, it takes energy, it takes patience, it takes persistence. You know, you're spending time and energy anyway, so think about all the money that you're spending on alcohol, all the money that you're losing out on because you're drinking alcohol. I think I used to spend roughly about €1,000 a month on alcohol, eating out, eating junk food, all of the crap that was involved with it. And, you know, I can't put a figure on the amount of money that I lost because I was drinking, right? So just think about where that's getting you. And imagine what you can do if you redirect all of that effort into consistent positive outcomes. So it really is up to you. You know, it's up to you what road you take. It's up to you what process you take on board. It's up to you how much work you put into this journey or not. I'll leave it there for today. Take good care of yourself. I'll speak to you tomorrow. Onwards and upwards. Bye now.